The stranger who watches me through my window. I never used to believe in ghosts. Monsters? No. Demons? Definitely not. But real people? People can be terrifying. And sometimes the scariest ones don't need to break into your home to ruin your life. They just need to watch. It started a few weeks ago. I live alone in a small apartment on the second floor of an old building. There's a single window in my bedroom that overlooks the street, and at night, the street lights cast long shadows across the pavement. I never really paid attention to the outside world once I closed my curtains, until one night, I noticed him. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, a trick of the light. But as I reached for the cord to shut my blinds, my eyes locked onto a figure standing perfectly still across the street. A man. He was just standing there, directly beneath a flickering street lamp. His face was obscured by the shadows, but I could tell he was looking up, right at my window. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest, an irrational fear creeping up my spine. He wasn't moving. He wasn't shifting his weight. He wasn't checking his phone. Just watching. I quickly shut my blinds and tried to shake the eerie feeling crawling under my skin. Maybe he was just some drunk guy. Maybe he was waiting for someone. But that didn't explain why I kept seeing him. The watching doesn't stop every night after that. At exactly 2:33 a.m., I would wake up. My body felt like it was on autopilot, pulling me toward the window. And every night, the man was there. He never moved, never left, just stood there, watching. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture through the blinds. But the moment my camera clicked, the street lamp above him flickered off. Total darkness. I blinked. My phone screen showed nothing but a blurry mess. I shivered and backed away from the window, locking it for good measure. Maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe I needed sleep. But my sleep never came, because that was the first night I heard him. The whispering. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up to a sound, a whisper. It was faint at first, like the rustling of leaves, but then I heard it clearer. I see you. My breath hitched. It wasn't coming from inside my apartment. It was coming from the window. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, staring at the dark outline of my curtains. And then, knock, knock, knock. Soft, deliberate. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and turned on the light, heart hammering. Silence. I inched toward the window, hands trembling. Slowly, I peeked through the blinds. The man was still there, but this time, his head was tilted, as if he knew I was watching. I shut the blinds and grabbed my phone to call the police. When they arrived, they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone having stood there. The officer gave me a skeptical look before driving off, but I knew he was real, closer for us. The next night, I stayed up. I refused to sleep. At exactly 2:33 a.m., I turned off my lights and peeked through the blinds. But this time, he wasn't across the street. He was closer, standing directly beneath my window, my breath caught in my throat. His face, God, his face was finally visible. It was wrong. Too smooth, too pale, too expressionless, like wax, with dark, empty eyes staring right at me. Then, he smiled, a slow, creeping grin that sent ice through my veins. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet. My stomach churned as I heard it again. I see you, but it wasn't from outside anymore. It was behind me. I spun around, nothing, just my empty apartment. My shaking fingers fumbled for my phone, but before I could dial, the whisper came again. I see you. The closet door creaked open, and in the darkness, something moved, vanished. I don't remember much after that. I woke up the next morning, curled up on the floor, my phone still in my hand. The closet was shut, my window was locked. The morning sun streamed through the blinds. For a moment, I almost believed it had been a dream, until I checked my phone. There was a single new picture in my gallery, a photo of me, asleep, taken from inside my room. And in the corner, the man was there, smiling. The laughing girl in the cemetery. There are many places people avoid when night falls: abandoned houses, empty highways, forests where the trees seem to whisper. But for me, the place I feared most was the old cemetery on the outskirts of my town. It wasn't because of the usual ghost stories or the unsettling quiet that hung over the graves like a fog. No, it was because of something much worse. It was because of her, the girl who laughed in the dark. A dare that should never have happened. It all started on a cold October night when my best friend, Jake, dared me to spend an hour inside the cemetery. "You're always talking about how ghosts aren't real," he smirked. "Why don't you prove it?" I should have walked away. I should have laughed it off. But I was 17 and stupid. I wasn't about to let Jake call me a coward. So, just before midnight, I found myself climbing over the rusted cemetery gate with only a flashlight and my phone. The air was cold, damp, and smelled of earth and decay. My footsteps crunched over fallen leaves as I made my way past weathered tombstones, some so old the names had faded into nothing. At first it was just a graveyard, silent and still. I even started recording a voice memo on my phone, making jokes about how Jake was wasting his time. But then, I heard it. A giggle. Light. Playful. Like a child's. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. It came again. This time it was closer. I swung my flashlight toward the sound, but the beam revealed only rows of headstones and shifting shadows. I told myself it was just my imagination, the wind, a distant house. Then I saw her, the girl who never left. She stood just a few yards away, half hidden behind a crumbling angel statue. A little girl, no older than 8. She wore a white dress stained and tattered, and her blonde hair hung in loose waves over her shoulders. But her face, there was something wrong with it. Her skin was too pale, her eyes too wide, her lips curled into an unsettling smile, too big for her small face. And she was staring directly at me. My body screamed at me to run, but my feet were frozen in place. Then she laughed again. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was high-pitched, distorted, stretching longer than any human laugh should, like the sound of a broken music box winding down. I forced myself to move, taking a shaky step back. "Hey? Are you lost?" Her head tilted sharply, like a doll's. The smile never faded. Then, without a sound, she vanished. 1 second she was there, the next, gone. The whispering graves, I didn't want to stay any longer. Turning on my heel, I bolted toward the gate, my flashlight bouncing wildly in my shaking hands. But the moment I reached the entrance, something stopped me cold. The gate, it was locked. Impossible. I had climbed over it easily, and there was no lock when I came in. A chill raced down my spine as I felt it. The air had changed. It was heavier now, thick with something unnatural. Then from behind me, a whisper, "Don't leave yet." My stomach dropped. My flashlight flickered. I turned slowly, praying I wouldn't see her again. But she was there, standing directly in front of me. This time, her head tilted even further, her neck bending at an impossible angle. Her grin stretched wider, her teeth too sharp, too white. And in a voice that didn't belong to a child, she whispered, "Stay with me." The chase I ran. I didn't care where, I just needed to get away. My feet pounded against the damp earth as I darted between gravestones, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The laughter followed me. It echoed from all around, bouncing off the stones, filling the air with its sickening melody. Then, suddenly, I tripped. My body slammed hard against the ground, knocking the wind from my lungs. My phone skidded away, the flashlight flickering wildly before landing on a name carved into a headstone just inches from my face. Eliza Monroe, born 1882, died 1890. My blood turned to ice, 8 years old. I didn't want to look. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Slowly I turned my head, and there she was. Not standing this time. Crawling. Her hands dug into the dirt as she dragged herself toward me, her grin splitting her face in two. I scrambled backward, my hands slipping over wet leaves. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Then, a voice. "Eliza!" The laughter stopped. I looked up to see an old woman standing by the gate, her wrinkled face twisted in fury. She clutched something in her hands, a rusted iron key. Eliza's head snapped toward her, the smile fading. Then, in the blink of an eye, she was gone. The truth about Eliza. The old woman helped me to my feet and unlocked the gate, dragging me out before slamming it shut behind us. She wouldn't say much, only that she had lived nearby for years and knew what lurked in that graveyard. Eliza was buried here over a century ago, she finally said. Died of scarlet fever, but she never moved on. I swallowed hard. What does she want? The woman's face darkened. She wants company. I left that night and never returned. But sometimes I still hear the laughter late at night, just outside my window. And I know she's still looking for me. The notebook that writes by itself. Some objects hold memories, some carry curses, but some have a will of their own. I never believed in the supernatural. Ghosts, demons, haunted houses, those were just stories people told for a thrill. At least, that's what I thought. Until I found the notebook. And it started writing back. The thrift store discovery. It began in the fall of 2019. I had just moved into a new apartment, a small but cozy place in an old part of town. The floors creaked, the pipes groaned, and the wind howled through the drafty windows, but it was home. One Saturday afternoon, I stopped by a local thrift store, hoping to find some decorations to make the place feel less empty. The store smelled of dust and old paper, packed with secondhand furniture, faded paintings, and shelves stacked with forgotten books. That's when I saw it, a simple black notebook. It sat on a shelf between two thick encyclopedias, its leather cover worn and cracked with age. There was nothing special about it, no title, no markings, just a plain book filled with blank pages. Something about it drew me in. Maybe it was the way it seemed untouched, like it had been waiting for someone to pick it up. I bought it for $1 and took it home. I wish I had left it there. The first words. That night, I sat at my desk, flipping through the pages. They were smooth, untouched, and oddly crisp for something that looked so old. I decided to use it as a journal, maybe for jotting down dreams or random thoughts. I grabbed a pen and wrote my name on the first page. Ethan Carter. The ink was still fresh when it happened. Right before my eyes, letters started appearing. Not in my handwriting, not in my pen. The words formed slowly, one by one, as if an invisible hand was writing them. Hello, Ethan. I slammed the book shut. My pulse hammered in my ears. This had to be a joke, a prank, maybe heat-activated ink, a trick page. I ran my fingers over the cover. It felt normal. I flipped to another blank page and wrote something else. Who are you? Again, the ink bled onto the page on its own. I am the one who listens. I dropped the pen. My skin crawled. Who was writing back? The rules. I should have thrown the notebook away, burned it. But curiosity won. Over the next few days, I started testing it. I asked questions. Sometimes it answered, sometimes it didn't. But one night, the notebook gave me something new, a warning. Never write in the dark. The message appeared in shaky, jagged letters, different from the smooth, deliberate handwriting before. I stared at it, my throat dry. What? I wrote back. This time the response came fast. Because they can see you. I slammed the book shut, my stomach twisting. Who were they? That night, I left every light in my apartment on, the writing that wasn't mine. For a while, I avoided the notebook. I shoved it in a drawer and tried to forget about it. But then the nightmares started. I dreamed of shadows standing at the foot of my bed, of whispers in the darkness, of hands reaching for me. One morning, I woke up to find the notebook open on my desk. I hadn't touched it, and yet there was new writing inside. Pages and pages of frantic scribbles. Who are they? They are watching. Do not turn off the lights. Do not write in the dark. They are coming. My stomach knotted as I flipped through the pages. The writing grew more erratic, like someone had been frantically scrawling in desperation. Then, on the last page, 5 words stood alone, written in deep, jagged ink. You have broken the rule. A cold dread settled in my chest. I hadn't written in the dark, had I? I didn't remember using the notebook at all. But then I noticed something else. My pen was still lying on the desk, uncapped. My hand was smeared with ink. I had written those words, I just didn't remember doing it. The whispering night, that night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. A whisper, not from the notebook, from my room. I sat up, my heart hammering. The air was thick, heavy, like something unseen was pressing against my skin. Then, a shadow moved in the corner. I shot out of bed, fumbling for the light switch. The bulb flickered, then flooded the room with light. The shadow was gone. But the notebook, it was open on my desk, and there, in large, smeared ink, were the words, "Do not turn it off." I backed away, my breathing uneven. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't my imagination. Something was here. And it was using the notebook to warn me. The final warning: I didn't leave my apartment the next day. I didn't touch the notebook. I kept every single light on, even as the hours passed. But as night fell, the shadows deepened. And then, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the room in an instant. My breath hitched. The air turned ice cold. Then, from the darkness, a whisper, right behind me. I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs. Nothing, but I wasn't alone. I knew I wasn't. And then, a single sound, the slow, deliberate scratch of a pen against paper. I turned to my desk. The notebook was open, and even in the dark I saw it. A pen, moving, writing. Something was in my apartment. Something was using my hand, and it was writing 4 final words. "They have found you." I don't remember much after that. Just cold hands, whispers, darkness swallowing me whole, and the laughter. The sick, twisted laughter. The aftermath. When I woke up, it was morning. The lights were back on. The apartment was quiet. The notebook was gone. I searched everywhere, tore the place apart, but it had vanished. I moved out the next day, left the city, never looked back. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear the scratching of a pen. And I know it's still writing, and it's looking for me.